What is going on, my peeps, and welcome back to another Sunday, probably Monday, DIY. For those of you who do not already follow me on Twitter, basically this video just took way longer to film than I expected it to. But it is finally done now, the video is done now, you're watching the video, it's all good. But basically the other day when I was trying to think of new original DIYs to do, I looked back on my own videos and saw that a long time ago I did a YouTube theme cake. If you did not see that one, it was way before I started the BuzzFeed Tested series, and I'll leave that link in the description if you want to go watch it. But I kind of took some inspiration from that and decided maybe if I took this YouTube logo that I'm showing you right now, it might be pretty cool if I tried to emulate that in candle form. Now, being that I've never made a candle in my life and there's really no pictures or videos that I could base this process off of, I figured it was going to take a while, and it did, but let's get right into it. Alright guys, so logically, the first step in candle making is to get yourself a bunch of wax. I have decided to go with these 6 enormous pillar candles. They are both white and unscented, so I think they'll work pretty good for this. Also, before I chopped the candles up, I took some pliers and carefully pulled out the wicks and saved them because I'm going to use them for later. I took them out of their wrapping and tried to cut them up into smaller pieces, which actually was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But eventually I got about 2.5 candles cut up and moved them over to the stove. Now, ahead of time I put on this huge pot of water because I figured it was going to take forever to boil. But since the water is already boiling, I just threw in a smaller metal bowl and threw in all of my candle pieces. And even though these pieces were pretty big, this actually will melt down a lot quicker than you might expect. And just a side note, be really careful when you're doing this. Try to keep the boiling hot water out of the candle wax, because much like BuzzFeed and original video ideas, the two, they just don't mix. But anyway, once all of the candles completely melted down to a liquid, I took them out of the water. Now I just grabbed myself this rectangular Tupperware container and poured in my first batch of wax. Once that was in there, I grabbed my wicks and taped one end to one wall, carefully poked holes in the opposite wall of the container with my knife, and then snaked the other side of the wicks through those holes. I also made them a little off-center of the middle of the container because I'm expecting to have to chisel this down since it'll be a bit too rectangular. It's all making sense in my head, just have some faith, bear with me. Anyways, once that first coating of the wax stiffened up a bit, I poured in the second batch and we had a little bit of leakage. In a panic, I quickly threw it into the freezer even though I didn't even film this step, and I just left it there overnight to solidify completely. The next morning I came back to it and it came out of the container easy, but as you can see, there is many cracks on the back side of it. I'm praying that these aren't going to cause us too many problems down the road, but I just threw it over onto my cutting board and tried to start chiseling it up. I shaved a little bit here, cut a little bit off there, and what do you know, the whole thing cracked. I don't know what made me think this would work, but I tried to repair it with some other hot wax that I had, and it just did not work. At this stage, I knew I was going to be in this for the long haul. I angrily proceeded to break this whole thing up, kind of like iDubbbz did to Leafy's subscriber growth. I don't know what has gotten into me today with these jokes. I'm on a roll though. But I just melted down all of those pieces once again. I cleaned out the whole Tupperware container, and this time I not only put the wicks in there ahead of time, but I also put a whole bunch of tape around the holes to hopefully prevent it from leaking, and I put a little bit of some tin foil and duct tape on the inside to prevent the wax from filling up the entire rectangular container. This time I did not put it in the freezer and left it out at room temperature for about 8 to 10 hours to completely dry through. And when I pulled it out of the Tupperware, I was much more optimistic about this time. Again, this time super carefully, I started to carve out all the excess pieces hanging on, all the edges to make them a little bit rounder. And with attempt number 2, so far so good. Now I just took some more of the white wax I had left over and chopped up a bunch of small red candles and melted those down till I got a nice, rich YouTube logo red. While that was melting down, I tried to repurpose the Tupperware by cutting off one of the sides, taping on the lid, and basically positioning it so when I put the wax in, I could dip the candle in it, if that makes sense. So that's what I did. I sealed up all the holes, I threw the red wax in there, and tried to dip it, and no. I didn't have enough red wax, and obviously it only went up about halfway, so this method wasn't gonna work. The second method I came up with was to grab a glass pan, line the bottom with some tin foil, lay the candle down in there front side up, and then layer by layer pour on the hot red wax. And this right away seemed to actually be working. Not only did the wax harden up over the top pretty quickly, but it also kind of covered up any imperfections there were on the face of the candle. And again, I had to leave this for quite a few hours. The third day, I woke up and peeled this out of the container, and thankfully, praise Jesus, I think this is actually gonna work. And finally, the very last step, I grabbed my X-Acto knife and kind of traced out the triangular play button in the middle, and very carefully carved away at the wax until I got down to the layer of white. My initial fear with this was that all the layers of red wax were gonna start to chip away when I was doing this, but thank God they did not, and it came out looking pretty darn good. The only thing left to do now is to flip that baby upright, turn off all of the lights, and light it up. $27 worth of candles, 3 days worth of melting down wax and burning all the skin off my hands. But the experience and the outcome, not really worth it, but still kind of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed this DIY. If you did, smash a like on this one. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and ask for 8,000 likes. That is the most I've ever asked for. Let's see if we could hit it. Also, let's see if we could tweet at YouTube or something and see if they could give us a little shout out for this, because I'm kind of proud of this. But anyway guys, I hope you have an absolutely awesome beginning of your week. If you want to go follow me on Instagram or Twitter, my links are right down in the description, and I will see you right back here on Thursday for another BuzzFeed test. Peace!